Because Maiyegun today, Maiyegun is live. So if you have been following the developments in Nigeria, one of them today includes the kind of like a boss-like walk-in of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to the Supreme Court of Nigeria, right? And in case if you have no idea, why was it there? I will help you tonight. Also, the face-off between Wike and that officer Yerima, right, seems to have been like almost wrapped up. There are people who are now who have told the Wike to his face now. What you did is absolutely disgraceful. So Wike has called his own press conference to tell us his own side of the story. There is more from there. So also is the Peter Obi's statement or his speech at the Auditors Guild, Nigeria Editors Guild in Ibadan yesterday, referencing the now disgraced country. That's the comment of Donald Trump that called Nigeria a now disgraced country. So why? Obi made his own speech around that yesterday. So I've brought that to you tonight. So as you are joining, be reminded that, the least you could do right now, which is also very great, is to like the broadcast, share it, and invite your friends and your not so friendly friends to join us. This morning, the Supreme Court of Nigeria received an August visitor, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So those of you who have been following the sham trial that is currently being, the affirmative show that is currently being performed by the junta, the regime of APC, Egbekebe in Nigeria, the sham trial of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So those who have shared their own legal views and why his action has seemed to have been, misguided, and others who have felt like, yes, that is Wamadike, the Oyendo himself, a fearless fighter that would never cower in front of his own supposed oppressor. So, divided opinion. On Maiyegun's diary political, I want to make you pretty much like in a better place to understand what is really going on, so that you are not totally lost in the wishy-washy propagandized information around this particular subject. So that's why on Maiyegun's diary political, it is not about just what Nnamdi Kanu want to prove to anyone. So I will remind you, every one of you, right, that the way I have observed the whole thing, especially the action of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and his legal advisors, is that he has nothing to prove legally in Nigerian courts anymore. And there is no surprise they can pull anymore, okay, concerning this. Because everything, the foundation of the whole thing is completely bogus and then faulty. In law, as they say, you cannot build something on nothing. So if you are charging somebody for a crime, and that particular crime go to the appeal court where this individual is discharged and acquitted, it was supposed to walk out of that courtroom. That one is not bail thing. Oh. Once a court says you are discharged and acquitted, you will walk out of that courtroom. And if they feel like, no, they disagree with that judgment, they will go on appeal. It is whenever they go on appeal and or maybe Supreme Court says, no, he has a case to answer, that is when you can now start the trial again. But he's already won. But they decided not to obey that judgment. Okay? For those of you who have been following it. The latest sort of like action of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is to further expose, not just to those of you, the naysayers. Some of you are his die-hard haters that you can't really define why you hate him, but obviously you hate him, right? Is that Even in the face of this, your lawless judiciary, so to say, compromised judiciary, a lawless government that will never obey their own court judgments, I would help you, those of you who have not seen it or not seeing it because it's not affecting you, I'll help you expose this, the rot in your judiciary and how much of compromise, right, they have. However, at the same time, if they decided to agree with him to redeem themselves, like something like, retribution, so to say, okay, you know what, you are right, obviously you are, because he is, you are hereby discharged and acquitted, because it's going to get to answer. So now, let me now bring you closer to why Nnamdi Kanu is at the Supreme Court today. On the 20th of November, which is probably like a week from now, Omotosho, who has shown enough biases and all that, the same guy who said that all the part of the evidence that the DSS presented as why Nnamdi Kanu is being charged with terrorism, that some of this being charged for terrorism. Oh, hang on, I just got something in there, right? Anyway, so let me retake that. Sorry about that. So what happened is that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, right, says that if, like, you can't build something on nothing to start with, okay? However, the supposed Supreme Court at the time, who actually looked into his case when he was being charged with treason, because that was the foundation. So when he won at the appeal court and whatever law they used at the time, and he still pretty much defeated them based on my illegal rendition. Here you get, like, I've got no case in any of your court. And the court agreed. Then they took it to the Supreme Court. So what they took to the Supreme Court at the time, when Nnamdi Kanu was said to not really jump bail, meaning if he had any case in your court right now, even if you want to retry these treason charges, right, he will still have to kind of like go back to his house because he's got a bail initially, right? So if you ignore that judgment from the appeal court, in this case, is that he had a bail. So you should let him go. So they ignore that part, right? Also, they have changed the charges. Now they are charging him for terrorism. This is where they got it wrong now, okay? So they dodged treason because that couldn't go any further. So they changed it to terrorism. Now, terrorism means you still have to find a law that says, oh, this crime you have committed, okay, is considered as an act of terrorism under a certain law in Nigeria. And here is the judgment for that. If you are found guilty of this particular crime under this law, you will go to 10 years in prison, or you will go to life imprisonment, or you are going to get death sentence. That is just the process. So when they left the Supreme Court, they didn't release him. So they picked the part where Supreme Court says, if you believe he has a case to answer, then he has a case to answer on this. However, he should still maintain his bail. So they ignored that part. At the same time, they also ignored the charges totally. They now brought another one, terrorism, under a law that has been repealed. I'm talking about a law that no longer exists. How could they make such mistake? How could they be so careless in whatever they are cooking or putting together that the most crucial part of their supposed case, the foundation of their case, is built on non-existing law, repealed law, right? Then Nnamdi Kanu was telling Omotosho, hey, Omotosho, part of the evidence they gave to you, right, that my statement, you have ruled that is not admissible. That's the part I almost forgot that time, right? That Nnamdi Kanu was said to have made a statement when he was with the DSS, when they kind of like kidnapped him in 2015. So, and then when they kidnapped him again from Kenya in 2021. So they said, this statement they said Nnamdi Kanu signed, from all the evidence of him being locked in solitary confinement, being denied the medication, food, water, all those things, right? That he couldn't use that evidence. Like, it's probably not admissible. So which ordinarily should have shown that, there is this whole case is pure trash. No, Omotosho didn't do that. He went on to say Nnamdi Kanu should go and put up a defense. Now, Nnamdi Kanu was like, we've told you about the illegal rendition. That automatically means you can't even try me. You, Omotosho, you don't have jurisdiction to try me. Okay, fine. If you have to try me, could you please let me see my case file? That was when he took over his case. Let me see my case file. So when they gave him his case file, it was like, number one, jurisdiction. You are challenged by jurisdiction, but you ruled yourself and say, no, you have jurisdiction. But by law, you don't. However, hey, Mr. Judge, did you know that they are charging me under a law that has been repealed? And he kept telling him in court and said, I can't put up a defense. If I put up any defense right now, call witnesses and all of that based on the allegations, right? I have already validated that, that their mistake. It won't matter anymore. So I'm not going to put up a defense because their case, my supposed defense, they are all going to be on a faulty law. So you're going to convict me on a law that doesn't exist? Or you're going to discharge me based on the law that doesn't exist? Something like that. But Motosho was like, no, he's got to put up his defense. And I was like, no, I'm not going to kind of like validate this case. Number one, you are going to do what you are going to do anyway. You are going to probably, those who are controlling you are going to make you probably give a judgment anyway. Even when you know that there is no foundation for what you are doing. How could the government that promised their own supporters that Nnamdi Kanu has a case to answer, the ones that are continue to make their supporters feel like they've got something against him, how could such governments make a mistake of the foundation of the law? Even when he's pointing that. So that what happened now is that they would have to withdraw the entire case. Do you understand? Even though they want to, I'm just saying, the right thing to do is to what? Withdraw the entire case against Nnamdi Kanu. And the court will be like a no case. They will discharge him and acquit him. The Nigeria will then have to go and sit down, gather evidence against Nnamdi Kanu, put all of their charges properly, and then charge him. That's the right thing to do. But they don't want to do that. So that is why Nnamdi Kanu is at their Supreme Court today. To ask the Supreme Court, Mr. Supreme Court justices, in the court, in your judgment of so day, you ruled this, and that. Did you know that these guys are charging me with something different right now? They are no longer charging me for treason that you ruled on. And they are also charging me based on a law that has been repealed. And the court won't listen to me. He has picked a date to give a judgment on what? So if you ask Omotosho and say, Omotosho, if Nnamdi Kanu is guilty, what is going to be his punishment? Nobody can tell you right now. Maybe some of you will be like, it's going to get 10 years. If we ask you right now that what's a section of Nigerian law is Nnamdi Kanu being charged right now that he will get 10 years in jail? Or what? Like it's going to get life in jail. Like some of you will probably project. You can't say because it doesn't exist. So that's why he's asking the Supreme Court now to say, hey, at least you are supposed to be the highest court in the land. If these guys are not, I need you to put a stop to this madness. This is actually not supposed to be hard. Put an end to this madness and let these guys go back and sort themselves if they want to really charge me for anything. That's why he was in the Supreme Court today. And because he is currently handling his own case himself with the legal advice from his lawyer, so he's representing himself. So he had to kind of present or submit that sort of like a file to the Supreme Court, sort of like admin or their reception that would take in all these documents. And that was captured. So when he arrived at the Supreme Court of Nigeria today, it sort of like turned into a carnival kind of like atmosphere when Nnamdi Kanu arrived. Staff of the court or others who are like customers of the court, everybody ran outside to come and take a glimpse at that Nnamdi Kanu. Yeah, that's Nnamdi Kanu. It's here, Nnamdi Kanu. And that was captured on camera. So I'll show you. This was this morning, by the way.
Whether you feel let down by the media, because I feel that the media has given
that can serve an equity.
Okay, it has been submitted.
I submitted. So when you're not in her office,
Okay.
so this is the thing. Hanging, they give a directive that count 7 doesn't exist anymore. So that
The prosecution
should amend it, change it, it doesn't exist.
They refused.
I still play to that same faulty law.
Yes, it was an error.
It's not an error, big error. So I want them to correct
And that
it.
was one of the motions we asked, that your plea should be set aside.
That's right.
And it has not been heard.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Some of the errors and mistakes
Now that judgment,
the judgment.
and the reason why it should give you a closer date.
Absolutely.
A closer date to hear the motion.
Yeah, only on sources.
The things that you listed,
mean,
the fundamental error.
It's shown on at the main judgment. It's upon page 22, page 25, page 26, page 27. The main thing would have been has now repealed laws and not found any prosecution. They still remitted back repealed laws to the High Court.
For the Federal High Court to correct it.
Oh, it's true. To correct it. But they have not corrected it. So I have to come back here.
For them to correct it.
Yes, they didn't correct it because it's an error on the face of the record.
And there are some directives were hanging. And it was not compliant.
Yes, especially with count 7.
Okay, and that was the reason why it
Absolutely.
why it should.
I need to know because how could una get judgment to say that my count 7 does not. This is for this is your Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So that was the brief one. So it was just there to file his, his appeal. 2 requests. Please interpret, because Supreme Court, please quickly interpret this section of the law. It says that you can't really charge me for anything without, an existing law to the, and then interpretation of some of the judgments back then, the judgments that the Supreme Court gave, which these criminals also ignored. And finally, that Supreme Court should take a stand by discontinuing the entire, shenanigans, including the scheduled judgment of November 20. Now, like I said from the start, from my own perspectives, right? As much as we know that what is going on is a complete persecution, an injustice, and the right thing to be done is to let justice prevail. Nnamdi Kanu is not afraid to stand in your courts, okay, and defend any charges. That is the man I have seen. He's not afraid. But you cannot ignore all this, legal point that is kind of like a pointing out. If you're not even a lawyer, it's so easy and readable, including quotes and references to instances like that. So all you need to do is to read up, and then you can see how faulty the nonsense they put together. But the agenda is to make sure that Nnamdi Kanu never see outside, right? Until maybe when they decided to let him be outside. And that's the persecution. That is not prosecution, right? So he won't defend himself before a law that doesn't exist, right? At the end of the day, okay, it's just to get to a predetermined end after all. So Supreme Court may not even look into this application. Meanwhile, the urgency at which he kind of like submitted it, even under their law, means that the Supreme Court needs to kind of like convene and take a decision on this. But because the power that be, the criminals in charge of Nigeria, right, who have decided to compromise the judiciary to this level, all they have to do is to make sure that the Supreme Court doesn't pick their case. Not now, and not even when the November 20. So if you are doubting me, ask Fubara. PDP governors went to court when Nnamdi declared state of emergency in Rivers State for 6 months.